Christina Luzius-Vanin, who is the Research Associate and Community Developer for the Oasis work. Christina holds a Bachelor of Arts in Visual Arts from Western University and a Bachelor of Education and a Master's of Education from Queen's, and is also currently a PhD student in the School of Social Work at McMaster University. Christina joined our team in 2022. She is the lead on data collection and supports all analysis activities for our CHR funded study fostering healthy aging in naturally occurring retirement communities. She also contributes to writing and presentations, and she is just an incredible asset to our team. Today, Christina will be sharing her reflections on the complexity of conducting community-focused research. And so I'll hand it over to her to ensure that we have plenty of time for questions at the end of today's session.
Thank you so much, Simone, for the lovely introduction.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to my presentation, Reflections on Conducting Longitudinal Research Evaluating Oasis and Naturally Occurring Retirement Community-Based Program. So as Simone said, my name is Christina, and I am a research associate here at Queen's. And I have been leading the mobilization and the Oasis evaluation in the Kingston and Quint area since 2023. Academically, my interest primarily lies within community-based research and in transformative research. One of the theoretical perspectives that has influenced me as a researcher and professional is an ethics of care perspective, primarily Toronto's conceptualization of a caring economy and building caring institutions and practices. I only mention this because as I was putting this presentation together, I came to realize that in many ways, the Oasis evaluation is conducted in a way that reinforces a caring relation between the research participants and the communities that we work with. And I'm really excited to share our experiences conducting the 4-year research that I would argue is a relational evaluation built on rigorous protocols and deep trusting and caring relations. So to start us off today, I wanted to start off with a land acknowledgement. So we're giving you this presentation from Queen's, which is in Kingston, Ontario. So the Kingston Indigenous community continues to reflect the area of the rich Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee roots. There is also a significant Métis community, as well as First Peoples nations from across Turtle Islands present in this region today. We are fortunate to be able to live, learn, and play on these lands, and we reflect upon what it means to occupy this space. Since we are discussing the evaluation of Oasis, an innovative model that offers programming for older adults living in naturally occurring retirement communities, I would also like to take a moment to reflect on how aging is typically understood through a colloquial understanding that impacts the way that we understand our relationship with this land and with each other as a community. Truthfully, I'm just beginning to learn what this actually means, but I would like to highlight Dr. Sean Hiller, a McMaster scholar from York University, who's done some work exploring aging from Indigenous perspective, emphasizing a holistic understanding of well-being that differs from a Western model, and Lauren Brooks-Cleater, whose work highlights how not addressing aging well from a social determinants of health perspective that includes colonialism, the opportunities for aging are limited for Indigenous people. These two scholars might be a good start for anyone who's interested in learning more about aging from a decolonial lens. And if anyone has any other resources that they know of, feel free to share in our chat. I'm sure everyone would be grateful for anything that helps us on this learning process. So I would also like to start off with a few acknowledgements with our team, beginning with our primary principal investigators, Dr. Catherine Donnelly and Dr. Vince DePaul, and the Queen's research team who balances mobilizing the Oasis program and the research here in the Kingston and Quinte surrounding area, and supports the Oasis communities across Canada. With Catherine and Vince's leadership and the trust that they and the Kingston Oasis team built with the communities we are working with, mobilizing the research has been enjoyable not only for me as a researcher, but for many who engage in our research. I would also like to recognize the co-investigators and research team in Western, McMaster, and Queens, the Oasis Supportive Living Incorporation, and the Older Adult Advisory Group, whose collaboration we deeply appreciate. And most importantly, the Oasis members and older adults who engage our research, as well as the community members and partners who allow us to enter and conduct our research in their spaces and homes. So co-production has a great potential for multi-layered impact, particularly when it's embracing complexities and tensions, as well as leads to policy change with involving multiple actors. However, there's a dearth of detailed and long-term evaluation of co-produced research and their health outcomes. Although the prevalence of co-design research increased in the wake of pursuing equitable and inclusive practice solution, there needs to be a better understanding of the complexities that arise when facilitating longitudinal evaluation on co-design programming with NORCs, which may be contributing to this gap of evaluation. Therefore, this presentation aims to describe the experiences and the complexities that arise when facilitating longitudinal evaluation on co-design programming with NORCs by reflecting on the team's experiences conducting the Oasis Evaluation Expansion Project, also known as the Oasis Study, which we are just wrapping up our final assessments in 2026. So to do this, we'll first begin by describing the NORC supportive programming, Oasis Community for Aging Well. So what is Oasis? The Oasis program was developed in 2011 with older adults living in an apartment building in Kingston. And since then, it has 3 larger phases of expansion to various naturally occurring retirement communities across Canada. So naturally occurring retirement communities are communities such as buildings, neighborhoods, any type of community in a community that has either 40% more or of older adults living in it. So the first expansion phase of initiated 6 new sites of Oasis and NORCs within Ontario in 2018, 4 in the Kingston and Quinte region, and 1 in Hamilton, and 1 in London. The second and third expansion initiated 13 new Oasis sites in NORCs across Canada. Since these phases of expansion, Oasis has continued to grow to over 20 sites that are in operation today. So Oasis is a low-cost seniors-driven program aimed to supporting older adults who live in naturally occurring retirement communities, such as apartment buildings. Oasis community members direct and engage group-based programming to address important determinants of healthy aging, such as isolation, nutrition, physical fitness, and a sense of purpose. These 3 core elements of the Oasis program that were defined by the Oasis community members are social engagement, physical activity, and nutrition. An on-site coordinator facilitates activities and programs that addresses these self-identified needs and wants of the members, including connecting them to existing services within their community. Social programming includes Oasis Lounge, coffee hour, cards, art activities, creative writing, and guest speakers. An Oasis member who described the impact of social programming talked about how the coffee hour, we interchange, we talk about the current events, and we talk about this and that, and we created a family. Physical activity program includes balance, strength, aerobics, flexibility, exercise, chair yoga, dance, walking, and gardening. When illustrating the impact of physical activity, an Oasis member discussed how if you don't have a reason to get out of bed and get moving, you don't have anyone to share what you're doing or your thoughts with, it gets pretty depressing and pretty lonesome. Moving on to our final pillar, the nutrition programming. This includes the communal dinners, potlucks, community gardens, food boxes. And when describing the impact of nutrition programming, an Oasis member stated that we have 3 meals a week, and to me, that's very important, again, for loneliness. When we eat together, you form a different type of association. So throughout the expansion phases of the Oasis program, we integrated an ongoing evaluation to determine the impact on social and health outcomes centered around these 3 pillars. Specifically, this presentation will focus on the evaluation connected to the first expansion of Oasis sites in Kingston, Quinte, Hamilton, and in London. So this brings us to the Oasis Evaluation and Expansion Project. In partnership with Oasis members, this ongoing longitudinal study utilizes a multi-explanatory case study designed with mixed methods. Participants include older adults who are 55 years or older living in Norks with and without Oasis. The Oasis sites include a multi-building complexes, high and low-rise apartments, and a mobile community home across Ontario. Non-Oasis sites matched Oasis sites based on resident age, marginalization index, size, location, and amenities. So the goals of our evaluation were to determine the influence of the Oasis on the social networks of older adults living in Norks, and to determine the influence of Oasis on the social isolation and healthy aging, including physical health, mental health, and function in older adults living in Norks. So this is a visualization of the structure of our research. So as you can see here, we have 6 Oasis expansion sites that are matched with the Norks without Oasis. And then each year we assess social, nutrition, and physical activities for 4 years, once each year. And then, so what is exactly involved in each of these assessments? So for our physical assessments, we measured comorbidity conditions, functional capacity, frailty, late life disability, and daily activities. For the wellness questionnaires, we measured general demographics, nutrition, food security, isolation, loneliness, depressive mood, satisfaction with life, and with daily activity performance, fall risk, and pain intensity. Social networks analysis included looking at changes in identified social network with personal contacts and community supports, ways of communicating with the types of support. So now this brings us to the reflections that we've had conducting the Oasis evaluation. Starting off with the different facilitators of our research. So throughout our 4 years, we've had multiple facilitators, including older adult involvement, including decision-making. So this includes engagement with and involvement with Oasis members in our partnership with the original Oasis Supportive Living Incorporated on the CIHR grant application for this research. They also informed Oasis programming governance, as well as were key informants when developing the protocol for our evaluation. To our newly formed, this also includes our newly formed Oasis Older Adult Advisory Group, who reviews and discuss any research to decide if the research aligns with the interests of Oasis, as well as engagement of Oasis members in the identification and implementation of related research questions to direct future research. So another facilitator is a committed and consistent on-site coordinator who not only facilitates the Oasis programming, but also helps us stay connected with the members on a regular basis and reinforces a continued trusting relationship with our research team. A third facilitator includes info sessions describing research to residents. So this could include informal sessions where we join programming and chatted casually with residents about what we do and our current opportunities to more formal presentations delivered to communities with light refreshments. What was important was that recruitment was active and introduced our team to the community. So regardless if someone decided to participate in our research, folks who lived in the community knew who we were and why we were there. As anyone who has done work in the community knows, security and safety is a key concern for communities, and respecting their security is key to developing trusting relationships with communities and community members. And buildings and communities that we introduced ourselves to, we were much more successful with recruiting participants compared to relying exclusively on non-active strategies such as recruitment posters. So another facilitator is health reports providing members with key results. So it was important that our research was not purely extractive, getting information from communities, but also provided them with information as well. So participants, for the most part, were very interested in seeing how they did on assessments compared to others in their age range. What made these reports particularly effective is when participants were offered to a sit-down session to review the health report with them to help contextualize and interpret the results and answer any questions participants had about their assessments and the literature that we were comparing it to. Another facilitator included a collaborative research team. So being a part of a collaborative team was crucial to mobilizing programming and our evaluation, particularly since we have a small team compared to everything that we are doing together. Having trusting and caring relationships with our colleagues translate in how the community perceives and trusts our team. Without building trust amongst ourselves, it would be incredibly difficult to foster trust with the communities that we're working with. So collaboration with landlords and community partners is another facilitator to our research. In order to get access to communities to mobilize the Oasis programming in our research, it takes building relationships with and collaborating with housing partners, which we were built working with our housing partners since the first phase of the expansion in 2018. Without their support, our research and work with Oasis would definitely not be possible. What becomes evident when looking at these facilitators is that longitudinal evaluation on co-design programming with NORCs requires a relational approach to evaluation and working with each other that fosters trust not only between the researcher and participants, but also the communities and partners where the research is taking place. So a highlight facilitator with engaging older adults involvement in our research included these research parties that we put on and hosted nearing the end of our study. These study parties were put on for the Oasis community, regardless if they were participating in our research or not, where we celebrated and thanked all the members for ongoing support and hard work completing the 4 years of data collection together. During these parties, we shared some of the things that we have learned so far in our research and how our data could be meaningfully used to work towards a more sustainable Oasis. We had great conversations with members about how future research can be used to solve local problems with each site. Members discussed important topics, including addressing food insecurity by navigating barriers to accessing food, engaging members in planning meetings for Oasis, engaging members with mobility issues, hearing issues and challenges in health statuses, and changes, in health statuses, and addressing mobility barriers within the community to create a more age-friendly cities. Particularly, unsafe intersections were an often topic that was brought up. Changing in demographics of Oasis community was another topic. as well as addressing ageism in the community and supporting LifeSpace by taking Oasis out of the building with group activities. Not only did these parties include a presentation and meaningful conversation with members, influencing our next steps in research, but we also had some fun with with balloons, cake, and socialized together. These parties rejuvenated both our connection to the community and our community's passion for research, and gave us a chance to reconnect with some folks who had a final assessment to complete with us, who we might not have been able to connect with otherwise. 4 years is a long time where community members' priorities, focus shift, and contact information change. We found it crucial to build in continual informal social connectors throughout longitudinal research project, not only to maintain trust and relations, but also to support the community's continued investment into the research that we started together, which was particularly useful when navigating the rising complexities that impacted our community and their engagement in our research. So some of these complexities included Oasis program disruptions, which describes disruptions that led to a pause or reduced programming at Oasis sites, such as gaps in staff, common spaces, that house Oasis being shut down for maintenance, as well as our small research team. So the work that is needed to mobilize large-scale research project takes a lot of coordination with each other and is additional to the work that is needed to maintain caring relationships with Oasis members and NORCs, which is extensive at times and at times can be exhausting, particularly when a NORC community and or its members have conflicting needs with each other and sometimes even with our own research team. It can pull our team's resources a little thin, which can impact both the Oasis programming as well as the research. Engaging with participants without Oasis is another complexity that came up throughout our research. So developing a relationship with other NORC communities takes time, particularly during our first year of data collection, which occurred shortly after the pandemic when community trust was already being tested, making recruitment with match sites a little difficult when we first started. Community experiences of loss. So this can include loss of key members who moved, went to long-term care, or passed away, to other forms of loss, such as grieving the loss of functional abilities as the community becomes frailer with age. As communities process loss, it's important to know when to push for research or shift focus to checking in with the community members to maintain caring relationships with community members to increase their future participation. Research fatigue was another complexity that arose throughout our research. So 4 years of extensive research can be a lot for community members. Compound this with research with other research opportunities, if occurring during a similar time, can exacerbate research fatigue felt by members. Another complexities include balancing responding to community needs and following our evaluation protocol. So doing the research in community is messy. Although our protocol calls for assessments to be completed every 12 months, in reality, life is much more complicated, with some people recovering from an injury, grieving a loss of a loved one, or going on vacation when it's time to do a follow-up, which required us to be more flexible than our protocol. From a quantitative assessment perspective, our research is a little bit messy, but from a community-based standpoint, our assessments are a little rigid. The tensions created from these complexities that our research is something that our research is constantly navigating as we evaluate when to be flexible, when to meet the needs of communities and individuals that we are working with. Another complexities include balancing the program and research mobilization. So these complexities reflects the sensitivity of coordinating the evaluation while maintaining caring relations with the communities that we are doing research with. Rigorous evaluation completed in partnership with community members requires commitment to work to reinforce the reciprocal trust built between the research team, community members, and partners that we're working with. Anything that tests this trust, such as Oasis programming disruptions, impacts the research engagement and investment of the community members. And the time needed to conduct longitudinal research creates a lot of room for complexities to arise where trust and the community's research investment is being tested, which is how reflected in how community members engaged with our research. So to look at this further, here's a table outlining how many participants completed all three assessments for each component of our research. There are a few things that we should consider when looking at these numbers. The first thing is that some participants agreed to complete the wellness questionnaire, but not the physical assessment, and vice versa. And a smaller sample of participants who completed these components also completed the social network analysis. The second thing to consider is that assessment 2 occurs a year after assessment 1 and assessment 3 a year after assessment 2. We have kept our recruitment open for the first 3 years of the study, meaning if there was any new Oasis members in 2023 that they completed their assessment 1, while those who started their assessment in the previous year would be completing their assessment 2 in 2023. Or new members in 2024, they started their first assessments while others were completing their second or third assessments, depending on when they started our research with us. Therefore, it's not surprising to see that a fairly large number for wellness questionnaires and physical assessments and social network analysis for assessment 1 and a steady decline in assessment 2 and assessment 3. To contextualize this a little more, we're going to focus on the participant engagement for anyone who completed our component of our research. So that would be the end section here. So considering so between 2021 and 2025, 49.63% completed all three assessments. And then 37.69 stopped participating without completing 3 years of assessments. So this includes about 35% of Oasis participants and about 41% of match participants. And then another thing to consider here is that we're still completing some assessments in 2026 and are following up with 37 participants, which is about 13.81%, which may change the above percentages a bit as we find out who completes our assessments with us this year. So considering how high the participant attrition rate is, it is important that we explore the various factors that might be impacting how individuals living in naturally occurring retirement communities are choosing to engage or disengage in research. So here is a bar chart looking at the different reasons why people decided to discontinue from our research. As you can see, the light blue is the match data, the darker blue is Oasis, and then batch we have here in green. What you can see is that 32.7 of our participants discontinued because they declined our research, while 10.9% moved to different neighborhoods within the community, and 5.9% discontinued because they moved to either long-term care or a retirement home. And then 36.6% discontinued from our research because we were unable to connect with them. And then 10.9% discontinued because they passed away. So as you can see, there are some things that we can't necessarily control because it makes either people uneligible to continue with our research, such as moving neighborhoods and moving to long-term care, and unfortunately a portion of people who passed away. But there is quite a bit of people who decided to make the decision to decline, as well as a considerable amount of individuals who we were unable to contact. So it's important that we kind of try to learn a little bit more about why people are either deciding to decline, or what possibly might be factors that lead to individuals not being able to be connected with. So members' decisions to engage in research happens in relation to what's going on in their lives and their contextual influences impacting their communities. Nothing illustrates this more than this visualization of programming disruptions such as gaps in staff, common spaces, which houses the Oasis program, closing due to maintenance, core Oasis members leaving or passing away, disrupting the Oasis community, and other disruptions, with the lightest blue indicating one disruption occurring and the darker blues indicating multiple disruptions, with the darkest blue indicating 4 disruptions being experienced across the Oasis sites in the Kingston and Quinte areas. And then this is compared to the number of participants who discontinued our research during that time, which is represented in the black line points. So as you can see, the first peak of participants who discontinued our research occurred after a break in the research and during a time where 3 disruptions were happening at one time. And then our highest peak occurred between a 4 and a 3 level amount of disruptions happening in one period of time. And when our programming across Kingston transitioned to a more stable time period, the number of people who stopped participating also decreased. There are some other considerations, such as our data collection schedule, which completes assessments with more Oasis members in the spring and fall compared to the winter and summer, which we should consider when looking at this graph. Anecdotally, what I noticed is that members who were facing multiple complexities, such as a decline in function, changes in their family or social networks, along with disruptions in Oasis, were more likely to stop engaging in research and not re-engage when the programming disruptions were resolved. So here are a few strategies that we would like to highlight that really helped us navigate these complexities. So they include being flexible and responsive to the community needs, ongoing team discussions, reevaluations, and reflections, utilizing engagement and recruitment strategies that are more active, and then limiting and prioritizing opportunities presented to Oasis members, and designating specific time to discuss programming versus research mobilization in connection with the members beyond our research. So in conclusion, what we've learned is facilitating evaluation and partnerships with naturally occurring retirement communities requires a relational approach to evaluation that fosters trust between the research team participants and their community. This takes time and commitment to building and maintaining these relationships. The time needed to conduct longitudinal research creates a lot of room for complexities to arise, where the community's trust and the research investment are tested, impacting the community members, how the community members engage with our research. Effective strategies to navigate these complexities require ongoing flexibilities, discussions, reevaluations, and reflections while being responsive to community members' needs. So it is hoped that these discussions will provide insights to better equip future researchers, practitioners, and communities when evaluating complex, co-designed solutions that aim to meet the evolving needs of our aging population. These are the references that we used for our literature of this presentation. And thank you all for coming today and listening to my presentation, and I look forward to continuing our conversations together.
Very much, Christina. I just wanted to take a moment to just say that Christina had to hit the ground running when she started with our team. You can see that break that was happening with data collection, and was able to do so, but also really to just develop such trusting relationships with both the MatchSite communities and the Oasis communities. And so I just want to commend you for that work, Christina. You've done a really fabulous job. I think what you've presented here today really highlights the importance of including multiple methods. So being able to conduct this longitudinal research while doing also some cross-sectional, asking some cross-sectional questions, and also including qualitative research to really contextualize what was happening and being able to tease out, even looking at that graph of the disruptions and the Oasis communities was really interesting. So now I just wanted to open it up. If anybody in the chat has questions, or if anybody wants to turn their mic on and ask a question. And I don't see anyone right now, so maybe I can kick it off. So just going back to the reasons why people were discontinuing participation. I know it's not easy to kind of answer these questions, but if you were able to elaborate at all on possible reasons why maybe the Oasis and Match participants were unable to contact, like could we not, did we lose, like did they change their physical phone numbers, or was it just that we weren't able to reach them? And do you think these reasons would have been different, given our relationships with each of these groups?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So some of the things that I experienced when doing recruitment were things like phone numbers going out of service. So that was one, or just people not re it, like following up with our phone calls. And for what was interesting was that, particularly for the Oasis, is that there were some members who that we called that didn't follow up that weren't really participating in Oasis. So that could be an indication why there. But there were also some members who we were able the coordinator was able to connect with and was still participating, but weren't connecting with our research team. And often those people were individuals that were experiencing some complexities within their life, which we know anecdotally just from like communications with folks, although that's not part of our um, we can't necessarily represent that on the chart because they're more informal conversations and not actually part of our data collection. Yeah.
Sure. And then so our data is collected annually, but I
Yes.
feel like you really, like, you maintain connections with these communities, even though it's not their time of the year for data collection. So I was hoping you could speak to like, how do you do that? I mean, we do the research, we've been doing the research parties and taking kind of more of a formal approach, but you've really developed these relationships over time. So like, what did you do to maintain, those in between times, those connections?
Sure. Yeah. So this is easier from the Oasis member standpoint because, we're part of that team that facilitates the programming. So, what that looks like is if they're having socials and are inviting our research team, we go and we make a presence, right? Some other times it's stopping by programming just to participate in an activity that they enjoy together. Really, what is important here is that it's the giving back component that you're connecting with folks that goes a little bit beyond the research. So it's just not a take, and it becomes more of a reciprocal relationship. This is a little bit harder and takes a little bit more planning on the match side, but I think for me, it's strategizing when we give the health reports, when I have like build in those sessions to sit down and have one-on-one conversations with folks, right? And then for each year when we were about to start a bigger wave of evaluation for the sites. It is a continuation of those info sessions as well, which sometimes at the match sites, if they have their own social community, they'll actually invite me to join the beginning or the end of one of their socials. So I can remind folks that I'll be calling so that they remember who I am. And if anyone new joined the community, they can either decide to participate in our research for those first 3 years, or even just get familiar with who I am, again, to build those trusting relationships. And then sometimes, if I joined the beginning, match sites really enjoyed putting me through some of their activities. So there was one info session that they were doing this activity where they were guessing, sampling different cinnamon buns from different places, and we had to guess where they were, and then did math. So they really loved putting, letting you be integrated in that, and putting you on the spot to keep you going and adding to some of the fun. But yeah, it takes a little bit of time in scheduling for the match because we don't have that ongoing programming where it's much more easier for the Oasis sites to do that.
I can appreciate that for sure. Thank you. Vince has a question.
I don't want to jump in too much, but thank you so much, Christina, for representing the strengths, but also the complexities of this work. And I really also liked how you highlighted that tension in the type of research that can be engaged, and where the priority is engagement rather than and some of the what you categorize those quantitative, which it's this sticking to the rigor, and some of the protocol, which can be challenging. Related to that, I don't know if you could speak to the uniqueness of that people come and join Oasis without expectation that they will, or a commitment they will be a research participant, which maybe from a research perspective has been challenging because there isn't a direct, you will see obviously there's only a proportion of people who join the research part. But maybe you can just speak to that and how we've tried to navigate that and continue to try and strengthen both aspects of this work.
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question. And I think that tension is me personally, I love that tension. And I think it's what makes our study really, really beautiful and unique. So you're right. And so for part of providing an Oasis program, one thing that was really important, especially for fostering those trusting relationships, is that it wasn't something that necessarily, although the research was really important to sustaining the program and making sure that that was clear, it was important that we didn't have strings attached so our research became coercive, particularly coming from a research standpoint. So really, sometimes that made things harder because for our match participants, they were entering a research project because it was a research project and that's what they wanted to engage in, right? But for the Oasis members, their communication started out with us because they were interested in joining in this program, and really were interested in the community component of it. And then the research was explained as a supporting factor to that. But I do think that there is a point that because it wasn't a requirement, there's also a strength. So on our match sites, I don't have this data up right now, but something that I noticed is that the participants that we engaged were less frail. They were younger and more active, where Oasis members, people who might be a little bit more hesitant to, join or do our research, it was easier to engage and recruit people who were more frail because we started with building a relationship and not started with a research and then had to build a relationship, right? So there's both complexities and strengths for, starting your relationship from a programming, mobilization aspect and then bringing in the research that really kind of is reflected in the way that people decided to engage in our research.
I know. Thanks for that. I think um, in your presentation and even in your answer, it highlights not only that the research methods are complex, but our analysis will be complex. So
Yes.
we will, and I think it's we have many sources of information, and one of the things that the approach we're taking is a case study approach, these multiple case studies, which allows us to integrate all these different sources, both qualitative and quantitative, which I think will be more tolerant of sort of missing data in certain areas, but we have other data to support. But yeah, so it's just thanks again for providing this overview for us.
Shannon has a question.
Yeah, I have a quick question, Christina. I'm just curious if, I mean, you talked a lot about the connections at the Oasis sites. I'm just curious if there were any connections made at the match sites between the individuals who wanted to participate in research. So whether they found sort of something, found people within their building or within their community that they might not have crossed paths with. Or maybe that was something that nothing never came up. I was just curious.
Yeah, so that happened a little bit at the info sessions where people like we advertise those info sessions at the match site with a poster. So someone who is or there's been a few times where someone was new to the community came to that and then met other people who were there, regardless if they decided to participate in our research or not. It was a little bit of a social connector for those informal like sessions that wasn't discussions about our research, but not necessarily our research ourselves. The way that we conduct our research, it's one-on-one appointments. So there's not really a lot of opportunities for people to connect when we're conducting our actual research, which is good from an ethics standpoint to maintaining confidentiality. But definitely for those info sessions where we were giving more formal presentations that brought the community together, there were some instances where people found communities and started engaging that didn't necessarily know that either programming was there or that there wasn't a community or even a building, but they're just like knowing people in their community and got to know each other through those info sessions.
I love that. Thanks, Christina.
Any other questions from the audience? No? In that case, maybe we will give you back 10 minutes to enjoy the sunshine. Before we close today, I just wanted to thank you all for coming. And a quick reminder that this month's HSPRI rounds on Friday, March 27th will also highlight Oasis. So Doctors Catherine Donnelly and Vince DePaul will be looking at the real world impacts of Health Service Program eval using Oasis as the example. And yeah, thanks for coming and have a great rest of your week.